Hi everyone, I am Corione, your Witch in Residence, and for 1K subscribers, I have decided to do something a little different. I decided to tell you guys a story, and I thought it would be interesting for you guys to understand a little bit more about me and a little bit more about where I was so you understand where I am now. Um, I want to tell you guys the story about how I became a witch. Now, to understand that whole piece, we have to go back a little bit. We have to understand why I wound up walking away from Christianity. Now, I want to start by making something very clear. I hold no animosity towards Christians or people who feel drawn to that faith. In fact, if you truly do feel drawn to that faith and are willing to live by those tenets, then please go ahead and follow them. You should do what you feel is right. You should worship the way you wish, and I would never impinge on somebody else's right to do so. My feelings are my own. I'm going to lay out the facts as I saw them, and I'm responding to my experiences. I am not trying to provide any sort of general experience for anyone. Now, with that in mind, you need to understand that when I was very little, I had a unfortunate situation come up with a male babysitter. When I was having trouble with it in high school, well, actually, sorry, grade school, grade 8, I had I was going to a Catholic grade school and I was seeking some spiritual guidance because we were talking about the importance of abstinence and the importance of virginity and what have you. And I had to be honest and say my piece that I was not, and it was not by choice. And so I was sent to get some spiritual counseling about this by the school. And the priest told me I had to seek forgiveness from God because of what was done to me. I could understand trying to follow the example of a live and let live and, agree to forgive the person that had done wrong. I can understand that, even though at the time I wasn't particularly interested in doing so. I can understand um, if you had a choice in something that you felt was wrong and needed to seek forgiveness for it, but I couldn't okay and I couldn't mesh being asked to seek forgiveness for something that was done to me. And the more I looked at things, the more I realized that for me, Christianity was playing by a set of rules that it arbitrarily enforced and didn't do everything that they said that were the goals. They didn't have anyone who lived up to them. And that made me realize that I didn't think that I could live up to those ideals because I didn't think they were attainable. And that was a big deal for me. So I started looking at other faiths. I sat with rabbis. I sat with Hindu holy men. I sat with imams at a Muslim place of worship. I visited um, African cultures and Buddhists and Zen Buddhists. And while all of them I thought had unique voices and something to offer, none of them spoke to me. And at the time, as part of like my own personal thing, I was studying the Hermetic arts. Now, for those who don't really understand what that is, the best way I can describe Hermeticism is magic as science. Okay. It's magic without tears, but it's magic without joy, without exultation, without wonder and awe, which didn't really work for me. And I came across, and every witch I met during that time was this lovely, warm, decent human being. Not all of them got along. Some of them fought, and yeah, some of them were kind of dicks too. But even being dicks to people, they were decent about how they behaved in the world. So I decided to look into this, and I started going to some of the classes, and I started talking with some of the priestesses and priests at the temple in Toronto, the Wiccan Church of Canada. And finally, I got to meet a couple of priestesses who sat with me and explained to me that this is a religion that must be experienced to be understood. That you have to stand in circle at least once and feel what is going on around you and see it through their eyes before you'll truly understand it. And so I agreed to go to a ceremony. This was out in one of the parks in Toronto that was very hidden away. It's off the beaten path. And as I listened and as I approached from the subway and listened, I could hear drumming. I could hear voices raised in songs had never heard before. And as I got closer, I could smell the burning incense and wood of an open fire. And as I walked forward, I was stopped at the circle by a gentleman who wanted to make sure I was there as a friend. That he said his job was to make sure that everyone else was safe. And that if I was there as a looky-loo, like I didn't want to participate, I wanted to just stay outside the circle and watch, or if I was there to cause trouble, that he would ask me to leave. And I told him I wanted to experience this, that I wanted to stand with him, and I wanted to be someone who is willing to learn. And so I was welcomed in, and it was a beautiful ritual full of song and joy and wonder and deep feelings and community, such as I'd never felt before. So I started studying. I went to classes. I was working a job that involved being working overnights. So I would literally get up, go to class, work an overnight shift, and then come home, rest, and repeat the same cycle for weeks straight. Um, After, about a year or two of this, I was asked to participate in a more meaningful way. And this is a thing they don't normally ask people who are not dedicated to the path. But they said that they knew I was going to keep going. I just wasn't sure yet. And sure enough, they were right. And very soon, I had a priestess who wished to sponsor me as a student. And I was being asked if I wished to dedicate myself to craft. The dedication ritual that I went through is unique to the Odyssean line of the Wiccan Church of Canada. And it's beautiful. Uh, Again, because of rules, I'm not going to take you through the entire ritual, but the long and short of it is you are brought before personifications of each element and welcomed and encouraged to work with them for the future and them with you. Think of it as kind of like meeting your own personal selves from another realm. So that's when I first met the elements that I would work with. It was shortly after that that the first priestess I was working with and I had a falling out. It was a matter of honor on my part and a matter of duty on hers. But very shortly after, I was picked up by my next teacher, a wonderful woman and her husband, the person you ever heard me refer to as the pervy sage. Um, Working with the two of them was fantastic, and at the same time, I had started working with the woman who would become my wife, and and we studied under them and grew together as a couple. And the whole time it had a different feel. The WCC is a very public place. It feels a lot like a small community church, but this was far more intimate. This was less than 10 people all working together for the same goals and same way of doing things. And we all bonded and we became a family like I've never experienced. And eventually, they pulled me aside and told me that I was ready, that it was time. And it was an incredible day. I remember coming to the ritual space. I lived in Toronto at the time, so I came on the subway. And the whole time I was trying to keep myself into a deep, focused kind of state. I had shades on so I wasn't tempted to look beyond where exactly I needed to look. I had music in that was what I listened to when I wanted to meditate. And when I got to the door, I was welcomed in. Um, they had me go through a long ritual of physically prepping myself for it. And it felt wonderful. It felt amazing. It felt like the culmination of years of work. And when and after the ritual, when I took a minute and closed and then opened my eyes, I started seeing the world a little differently, a little happier, a little friendlier, and a much deeper understanding of how it worked. After time, um, disagreements on protocol and what have you led to Steffi and I walking away from Pervy Sage and his wife and going to the wonderful woman I'm studying under to this day. And when we joined her group, there was a bit of a rebirth that we did with them. And it was like coming home to a new home. I don't know how else to describe it. They say you can't go home again, and that is true. But you can go to a brand new home and feel the same wonder as you did the first time. I've been with them now for a while, and I absolutely love it here. And when they say it is time that I've learned everything that I can learn from them, it is time to move on, I will be sad, but also full of joy and gratitude for what they offered me. Now, I know I haven't gone into a huge amount of details here, and truth be told, I probably won't for a good long period of time, and for good reason. Um, because I will say that one of the things I was asked to promise at each step of the way was not to, one, reveal what actually happens inside a ritual because of a few reasons. A lot of that has to do with keeping the surprise, the wonder for new people that come along. And two, I don't feel comfortable revealing people's names that were involved that have not given me express permission to do so. The reason being is because some people want to keep such religious matters private and secret for various personal reasons. And I want to try to honor that. And saying, oh, Bob was at this ritual on this night, when he may have told his family something completely different, or even worse, because we're very open and understanding people. I saw Tim with Bill at ritual and he hasn't come out to people's parents. That could be very awkward and very, very mean to do to somebody without their consent. So I try not to do that out of respect and out of fellowship. So this whole process, this whole getting from there to here, took almost 24, 25 years, about. It took an immense amount of study. I don't think there has been a day that has gone by where my nose hasn't been buried in one book or another, learning as many things as I can, in finding new insights into mythologies from ages past. But that information is important, and that work is important, because if I am going to be a guideway to other members of the community, if I'm going to stand up and claim to know anything about the universe, I have to personally be willing to do that work, to try to live up to the expectations. And that's what I tried to do. Now, I don't always succeed. There are some things I still don't know. And truth be told, I don't think it's possible for me to ever learn it all. But I'm going to do my best. And part of what I do here is about trying to give you guys as much of what I have learned as I possibly can. Because I know how much the world needs somebody to stand up and say, I don't have all the answers, but this is what I've learned. And if it helps you, then I've done a wonderful thing. And I'm glad to help you. I hope you take that message forward and choose to share what you've learned from your journey and the lessons that you've learned, and try to help others to maybe avoid some of the mistakes you've made, because goodness knows I've made a few along the way. But I would like that very much if you would do that. So, guys, thank you for listening. I know this has been a very big departure from what I normally do, but I felt it was worth it. Merry meet, merry part, merry meet again. Thank you guys very much. Take care.